Welcome back to another Film Geek movie review. In just a moment, I'm going to be walking my happy butt over to the futon to check out the new horror film, The Soul Eater. So what's the plot of this movie? Well, it seems that there is a small village in France that's dealing with a lot of gruesome murders, and so the police are investigating it. Now, the police believe that it's some kind of strange psychopath murderer, but the locals believe it's a legend known as the Soul Eater that's killing its people off. This film comes to us all the way from France, and I have kind of been stalking this movie. I heard about it a while back, and I have been waiting for it to come to the United States. It was released in France back in April, I believe, and I have been kind of stalking this movie. I was really hoping I was going to get a theatrical release here in Kansas City, and I do believe this movie has a few theatrical releases throughout the United States, but it is on VOD services as of now, so I have rented this off of Amazon Prime. And guys, I am stoked to check this film out because it's kind of a throwback to a subgenre of horror that I really miss. And that is the psychopath serial killer subgenre of horror that got really big back in the 90s and just kind of dominated that entire decade. It seemed like every month we were getting one of these types of films. And then once the 2000s hit, they just slowly but surely vanished into the ether. So I am really excited to see these movies start making a comeback. So you know what? It is enough of me sitting here jibber jabbering on. As always, my good old cat Haku is currently staring at me, judging me with those big green eyes of his, impatiently waiting. And is he licking his lips? What are you doing? Okay, you know what, guys? He's getting really impatient. I need to get over there and check out The Soul Eater. Welcome back. Just getting done watching The Soul Eater, and guys, this movie goes to some really dark places. So let's get this started, shall we? We're going to get things started with negatives, then move into the positives to end the video on the ever so important high note. Okay, so the pacing in this film and just the way the movie is structured, it does get really draggy at the beginning of the film. I mean, there's a lot going on, don't get me wrong, and there's a lot of build up to the climax of this movie. The film is around 2 hours long, and the first hour of this movie is just pretty much police investigation. It is about an hour into the movie until it gets into more of a supernatural psychopath slasher killer horror film. The first part of it is just a complete investigation of actually two things for two different police officers, but they're all combined into the same investigation. Well, let me explain. So we have one investigator who is investigating these murders that are happening in this small village, and then we also have another investigator who's investigating some missing kids that seem connected to these murders. So these two police officers decide to work together somewhat in order to solve this mystery. And so the first half of the movie is just the two of them going around asking some questions, learning the lore of the Soul Eater and so on and so forth. And while, yes, all of that is important to the story, it really slows things down and it unfortunately made my mind wander a little bit. And with this movie being a VOD, of course, I found myself reaching for the old cell phone to look at the Twitters and the Facebooks and the sky blue sky, whatever, the social medias and whatnot. And then I would have to pause the movie, rewind it and such. So maybe that's on me because I have a wandering mind and all, but it did really feel like the movie was very slow paced at the very beginning of it. But believe me, after that first hour, it really picks up. And there is a lot going on in that first hour with the investigation that does definitely come back to round a lot. There's a lot of subplots that are going on and things that you need to pay attention to in the background. I just feel like they could have mixed in a little bit more action into that first hour just to kind of keep us more interested in what's going on. I mean, the investigation is intriguing enough, but it does start to get a little bit on the slow side until we finally get to what we get to see as our first attack, I guess you could say, of the Soul Eater. Now, we have seen different, sites, different murder scenes and all, which are absolutely gruesome, which I will get to the special effects and all once I get into the positives. So we have had some of that. We just haven't had any action or anything that really shows us what this Soul Eater character, let's just say that, is capable of doing. So then finally, after our first hour, we're into it and we get into what would be more like a police horror investigation type film where there's a lot more action into it, the investigation happening at the same time and so on. But you really have to remember everything that happens in that first hour for this ending to make sense whatsoever, because there is a lot of things that come around full circle. And that's not necessarily a negative. That's just me letting you know that you do have to pay attention for that first hour. Do not try to fast forward to get to the good stuff, is what I'm trying to say. So let's get into the good stuff. Oh, wait. This is not necessarily a negative. Let me put it to you this way, and of course, let me have a little old sip. You can hear my voice is still recovering. Good Lord. Okay, so this is more of a mixed. Now, I saw this film on Amazon Prime. I rented it off of their VOD service. And my only option was watching the dubbed. To the best of my knowledge, I didn't see anything else. I did not watch a subtitled version of this. So the downside to that is that I do not know exactly, the actors' voices in this movie. So it makes it kind of difficult to judge the acting 100% when I couldn't hear the original voices of the actors and their cadence, their line delivery, things of that sort that really tie into the way an actor creates their characters. And so even if you don't understand the language, if you can understand all of those tones and so on, it adds to the performances and it really helps you kind of decide how good they are. But in this case, with the dubbed version, I'm not sure if I was hearing the actors' actual voices or not, but the dubbing really, it wasn't great in all parts. There were definitely some characters that the voice just did not match well whatsoever with the person and so on, and it wasn't the greatest, but it had a tendency to kind of take me out of the moment every so often. So I'm just warning you that if you're in the States and you watch this on Prime, more than likely you're going to see the dub and you're going to find out exactly what I'm talking about. It doesn't ruin the movie. It's just kind of like I think this would have worked better as a subtitled only type of release. All right, so let's move into the positives, okay? Now, as I said, I can't really necessarily say the acting was amazing or good or bad, but it was good, It was just the dubbing was very strange in some areas. The story, as it finally gets to where it gets really kind of going, it was great. I mean, this movie goes into places that I was not expecting this movie to go into. As I was saying, this film gets very, very dark. And let's just say I mentioned the missing children, and this is a warning. If you have issues or something with anything that has to do with kids in horror movies, let's say, you might have some difficulty getting through some of these scenes. Now, you get to see a lot of just heavy mention. Let's just put it that way. All right? Now, anyways, moving into the practical effects, there are some really well done scenes in this with some great violence and some really cool kills, and everything looks absolutely brutal. And the special effects, the makeup effects and all look very realistic and just absolutely chilling. This is more of those realistic gore type situations that is just more like a oh my god type of things. Like there's a scene with a guy with a broken leg and it's just like meow. It's that kind of gore. So again, if you're kind of weak at the stomach and that type of stuff, you know what I normally say in this situation. Well, anyways, guys, all in all, I have to say that this movie does deliver a really good VOD type of film that, yes, maybe seems like a slog to get through at the beginning, but trust me, give it an hour and you are going to be completely soaked into this movie, and you will definitely want to see exactly what's going on with this Soul Eater character. And I also really did like the look of the Soul Eater. I wanted to throw that into the positives also. You don't really get to see a lot, but what you do get to see, it's for the movie itself, it works really well. Alright guys, well that's all I have for you today. Oh, I saw this on Amazon Prime. I do not know if it's on any other VOD services, but it's currently on Amazon Prime to rent for $4.99. I think you can also purchase it to own. Not sure, I just rented it. Anyways, definitely worth the rental, so if you're in the mood to watch a really interesting police investigation horror film with some occulty, folk horror kind of vibes to it that ends up on a very just dark down note, well hey, here you go, check this movie out. Well, alright guys, thanks again for checking out the Film Geek. If you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and give me the old thumbs up so I know you like what you're seeing. And if there's one more thing you can do, folks, that is keep watching movies. You know I'm gonna.